Welcome to our Pirkei Avot Shiur. We are on chapter 3 and we're going to do Mishna 14 now in memory of Levy, Moshe, Esther and Sheviel but Levy, and also in memory of Tzivia but Moshe Esther. Okay, over to Michael.
Thanks, Rav Mashiach. So in this Mishnah we are introduced to the teachings of Rabbi Dosa ben Hukanos. He was of the first generation of Tanoim, proceeding from the era of the Zugot. He was contemporary to Yochanan ben Zakkai and was active during the era of the Second Temple, and he lived quite to quite a ripe old age, even after the destruction of the Second Temple. He died approximately 60 years after the destruction of the Second Temple. The Talmud Bavli relates a story attributed to Rabbi Dosa ben Hukanos and how that he had received an oral teaching passed down from Haggai the prophet, who had said three things. Number one, that it is not lawful for a man whose brother married his daughter as a co-wife in a polygamous relationship to consummate a Levirate marriage.
That's
with one of his deceased brother's co-wives.
Yibum.
A teaching accepted by the school of Hillel but rejected by the school of Shammai. Secondly, that Jews living in the regions of Ammon and Moab separate from their produce the poor man's tithe during the sabbatical year. And thirdly, that they accept of proselytes from the people of Tadmor or Palmyra and from the people of Kardu or Kudueno. In the days of Rabbi Dosa ben Hukanos, the general practice was as the teaching of the school of Hillel, who prohibited a man of like status to consummate a Levirate marriage with one of the co-wives of his daughter. The rabbis had heard that Rabbi Dosa ben Hukanos permitted it. They therefore came to question Rabbi Dosa's beliefs in this regard when it was reported in ben Hukanos' name that he permitted such marriages. As it turned out, he explained that it was not him who permitted it, but rather his brother, Jonathan, who followed the teachings of the school of Shammai. So let's get stuck into this Mishnah. So Rabbi Dosa ben Hukanos Omer, Rabbi Dosa ben Hukanos said, Shena shel shacharis v'yayin shel tzoharayim v'sichat hayeladim v'yeshivat b'tei knesiyot shel amei haaretz motziim et ha'adam min ha'olam. Rav Dosa ben Hukanos said, sleep in the late morning, wine at midday, children's talk, and attending the meeting places of the ignorant remove a man from the world. So, as I said earlier, we know that Rav Dosa lived to a very old age. He was therefore well aware of some of the activities which senior citizens would enjoy. Sleeping away in the morning, perhaps drinking at midday, and whiling the evening in idle sort of different sort of talk and so on. We are truly best if Hashem grants us long and healthy years. But in what sense can we regard ourselves as living if we fritter away our days and years, even if the older years in sort of trivial pursuits? Life, if it is to be more than a mere animal existence, must be meaningful, creative, and productive. The specific times mentioned in the Mishnah, this Mishnah they are significance. You inquire why someone who does not attend Shacharit, the morning services, and you find that perhaps he sleeps late. In the afternoon, for Mincha, he is perhaps slightly inebriated from this wine at midday, so to speak, and he undoubtedly forgets to recite Ma'ariv because he becomes engrossed in perhaps playing cards or the such like. These activities are not only trivial, they are actually harmful, for they can interfere with the Jew's performance of his religious obligations. Such activities can indeed, and I quote, draw a person from this world. These unproductive activities may also be related as a series of causes and effects. Perhaps a person sleeps late in the morning because he stayed up far later than he should have in the night, watching some movie on TV. During the day he is so exhausted that he accomplishes little in business. He becomes depressed and goes off to the bar for an alcoholic sort of pick-me-up, an injection of so-called cheerful spirits. Perhaps then he meets his fellow sufferers and they plan to drown their troubles in a game of poker. Perhaps the game lasts until late at night, and the cycle continues again and again. People of this type may likely end up living most of their time in an illusory world of make-believe to escape an increasingly difficult and problem-laden world of reality. In Mishna,
it's escapism, that's what it is.
Escapism.
People just can't handle this life, they just go somewhere else.
Yeah, and King Solomon refers to that in Mishle. He criticizes the lazy person who doesn't put his precious time to constructive use. And I quote, "How long, O lazy one, will you keep lying? When will you arise out of your sleep?" It is difficult to get certain people to bed, but once they are asleep, it is equally difficult to get them to rise in the morning. Yet what keeps them up at night is usually as unproductive as the unconscious stupor in which they wallow in the morning. Again, King Solomon observes, and I quote, "The door turns on its hinges, and so is the sluggard still in his bed." This we learn in Proverbs 26:14. It is well known that we twist and turn in our sleep every few minutes, much like a door that keeps opening and closing. But in a sense, the lazy sluggard is worse than the door. When it turns on its hinges, it is performing the natural function for which it was made. When a lazy person tosses aimlessly on his bed, letting his spirit and mind go unused, he simply wastes his God-given faculties and his very limited time. Indeed, we can go further and apply Rabbi Dosa's adage to the life cycle of a human being. During their children's early years, some parents adopt morning sleep as their slogan. This becomes an all-important thing. The child is not sent to yeshiva because it would mean rising early and staying up late doing homework. As the child grows older and approaches the midday of his life, the theme becomes wine, a symbol for a euphoric, dreamlike state of blissful happiness in which all appears pleasant and friendly. Just as his early conditioning probably consisted of, pursuits like food and playing sports and films and movies, so does he now move on to some of the more adult pleasures. Again, certain parents are so practical that they cannot see use on purpose in Torah study or yeshiva education. If you cannot show them that an activity will lead directly or indirectly to earning money or deriving immediate pleasure, they consider that activity superfluous. Such practical people might well incur the Chachamim's wrath. As they say, may decay ravage the bones of Mahavsheh Kitzin, those who calculate the ends. In other words, the time for the coming of Mashiach. The Aramaic term might also be translated as those who also always reckon and calculate practical goals and ultimate purposes. When such a searching for tachlis, practical results, is used to subvert Torah learning, it is tragically misplaced. To continue with our Mishnah, as our hypothetical individual grows older, he is reduced to child's talk. With his physical strength weakening, his interest in life waning, he is reduced to idle chatter, insipid games, or perhaps therapy concocted by perhaps some well-meaning social workers to fill this sort of end phase of this life. Since he never cultivated the enduring values of religious worship or Torah learning, he has gradually let himself be drawn out of this world. The Mishnah also teaches elsewhere, and I quote, "Ignorant people in old age, as they grow older, their minds grow more distraught and confused. Not so the old who are learned in Torah. As they grow older, their minds grow more settled or orderly or mature." This we learn in Mishnah Kinim, chapter 3. Indeed, life confirms this observation every day. The elderly rabbi, the scholar, even the professional person who has stored up vast amounts of learning and interest, he does not regard retirement with anxiety, but with pleasurable anticipation. It will give him the leisure to read and write and to wisely observe the passing scene. But the ignorant person who has lived all his years for physical sensations of pleasure and has wasted his time with trivia is lost as he approaches old age. He finds himself with less and less to do, and with the lack of anything meaningful to occupy his mind. The only world he's ever known is already inexorably passing him by.
Wow, that's quite a sad indictment of elderly people, that they while away their twilight years in playing golf and meaningless chit chat. But unfortunately, that's not the only problem, because nowadays we see the young people engaging in this type of pursuit of hevel havalim. You know, I don't have to talk about the internet. But it's not just that; it's all the manifold distractions that the Yetzer Hara is pounding us with every day to distract us. It wasn't like that when we were growing up. When we were growing up, we had wholesome pursuits which we did in our leisure time. If there was any extended leisure time, we had constructive things to do, which bolstered our energy and our mind.
Well, maybe the reward for the future generations would be far greater, because their pull of Gashmias is so great in today's society that perhaps they are deserving of more reward from Hashem when their lives are completed. It's tough being a kid nowadays.
Oh yeah, it's tough. Never been tougher. Never been tougher. I just hope that the youths just learn a bit from the older generation, which I believe a lot of them do. A lot of them do that. Okay. Anyway, we'll end off on this optimistic a note that B'ezrat Hashem, the youth will learn the lessons of their elders, and as they do, there's so many beautiful, wonderful organizations nowadays like Chazak and JLE and Or Sameach, Gateways, JEC. I can go on and on. And B'ezrat Hashem should have mercy on us and bring the young generation in line with the observant older generation. Okay, thank you very much for that, Michael. B'ezrat Hashem, we'll see you next time when we will be discussing Rabbi Elazar HaModai. Until then, wish you a wonderful and blessed week.